So this is the main Solstice Canyon Trail and the Rising Sun Trail at Solstice Canyon in Malibu, California. So this is the entrance to where the Solstice Canyon Trailhead begins. This is the main parking lot over here. The trailhead is shortly afterward. It is a loop about 3 miles. So this is the map. We're going to be doing the 2.1 mile Solstice Canyon Trail loop, which starts right after the park entrance, and it goes here for 2.1 miles past some ruins and, according to this map, also a waterfall, but that will probably be dry at this time. After taking the Solstice Canyon Trail past the Roberts House, which is the second ruined house on this trail, you can also take the Rising Suns Trail back for a little bit more variety. Taking the Solstice Canyon Trail to Rising Sun Trail loop makes for a moderately difficult hike, with the most difficult part being the first uphill portion of the Rising Sun Trail as you're gaining the most elevation. The first section of the Solstice Canyon Trail follows a mostly flat paved road along a creek before reaching the beginning of the actual trail. So according to this sign, the Solstice Canyon Trail just continues along this road straight, and I'm not sure where it ends up after that. The main Solstice Canyon Trail ends at the Solstice Canyon Waterfall after passing the ruins of the Roberts Ranch House. This house was destroyed in a 1982 wildfire, but was built in 1952 by architect Paul Williams, and there's a tropical landscape around it, as well as the ruins of some parts of the house, such as the chimneys and fireplaces. So this seems to be the start of the actual Solstice Canyon Trail, because the paved road ends here. So I'm not sure if that paved road was included in the 2.1 miles or if there'll be 2.1 miles after this, but we'll find out. The majority of the Solstice Canyon Trail is shaded by large western sycamores and coast live oaks, and is also surrounded by some nice drought-tolerant wildflowers that are there all year, such as this chaparral mallow. So I'm not sure exactly what fire came through this area anytime recently, but you can still see some of these hollowed out remains of oak trees, including, this is the first one that I've seen. The trunk is completely hollowed out and charred. Partway through the main trail, you can take a quick turn to see the ruins of the Keller house, which was originally destroyed 2 years after being built in 1901, but was rebuilt and destroyed again in a fire in 2007. So this is some information on one of the ruined buildings that you can see on this trail. It was built between 1901 and 1903, but the wooden parts of the structure were burned in the coral fire in 2007, so only some stone and metal parts remain. Only the stone walls and metal fence around the perimeter of the house remain, and you can't actually go inside the house, unlike the second ruin on this trail. So this is the outside area of the historic Keller house that was destroyed in the 2007 coral fire. You can also see some of the stone ruins here and the chimney, and it also looks like this sign was kind of melted in a fire after 2007. I'm not 100% sure which fire that would be though. There are also some red bougainvillea near the Keller house that are a great place to see butterflies in the early summer. So after this section near the Keller house ruins, you can just turn back onto the main trail right here after the bridge. The majority of the rest of the main Solstice Canyon Trail is shaded by some dense coast live oaks and other trees.
There are also a few small side trails that can be taken off the main trail that will only loop back to it eventually, but do provide some great close views of the creek nearby.
So there are some short trails that you can take off the main Solstice Canyon trail to get closer to these creek areas down below, which do actually have some water in them. And they're surrounded by some of these nice western sycamore trees, and I imagine there are a lot of frogs in here at night, but won't know that because they're nocturnal, so they wouldn't be here now. So this main Solstice Canyon trail appears to be pretty closely following the stream below for most of the way so far. Parts of it are paved, which I assume is like an old road to lead to one of the ruined buildings now. That used to lead to one of the ruined buildings to make it easier to drive through here. But for now, it's only a trail. And there are definitely some nice trees along here. It's partially shaded, but it is a cloudy day. And I'd say it's fairly easy so far. So here is the tropical terrace. This is the Roberts home, which was built in the 50s and burned in 1982. You can see a lot of the concrete and the tropical plants. These Canary Island date palms are still here. So it's kind of interesting here. You can see a lot of the remains of the area surrounding this burned house and the gardens. A lot of the tropical plants are still here. The concrete and the brick and everything is still here. You can see there's a big outdoor fireplace. There's some tropical gardening still left here. There's a large queen palm, Canary Island date palm. Definitely stuff you wouldn't expect to find in here if it was a natural area.
So as I said, the Roberts house was a large luxury house designed by architect Paul Williams and completed in 1952, but destroyed in a wildfire in 1982 due to failure to maintain the sprinkler system that protected the house from wildfires normally. This system actually pumped water out of the nearby pools and stream to protect the house, but failed during that fire. You can actually walk through the gardens here and into the ruins themselves to get a closer look if you'd like.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting that most of these plants, these birds of paradise and everything else just seem to grow back, and they're still here 40 years after the fire. But 99% of everything in this house is gone except for steel and brick. So you can see here there's actually an old stove that still is here. It's definitely full of like leaves and stuff by now, but still make out the oven and some trays and stuff in here. Definitely are a lot of fireplaces and chimneys around here, even outside of the actual ruins of the house. So that was probably their only source of heat, so there's definitely a lot of these.
After exploring the Roberts house ruins, there's a short trail that leads up some stairs to the Solstice Canyon waterfall. This waterfall generally has some water flowing through it all year, but the level of water will definitely depend on the drought in the area.
So this is the main Solstice Canyon waterfall here. It's right past the ruins of the Roberts house. It's actually still flowing pretty nicely here. The water is nice and deep and clear, and it's flowing nicely during the drought. Fred Roberts and his wife purchased some land in the Solstice Canyon area in 1931. The house actually had a window looking out on the waterfall and the natural spring pools behind. But from the picture, actually most of the, surprisingly, like obviously the lawn isn't here anymore really, you can see the remains, but most of the trees actually survived and are still here today. So here we're gonna take the Rising Sun Trail back 1.9 miles from the Roberts house.
The Rising Suns Trail leads 1.9 miles towards the TRW Loop Trail to end the hike. It gains a few hundred feet of elevation over the main Solstice Canyon Trail and provides some great ocean and valley views.
So if you take the main Solstice Canyon Trail back to the parking area from the Roberts house, it'll be flat and downhill, fairly easy like you saw before. The Rising Sun Trail though is mainly uphill. Probably moderately difficult, but it's uphill for the majority of the time back.
Although there weren't too many wildflowers on the Rising Sun Trail in general, I did see a lot of this common tarweed.
So this is partway through the Rising Sun Trail. You can start to get some nice ocean views in the distance. And it's definitely higher elevation than the last trail. You can see along the side of the mountain over there is where the Rising Sun Trail continues back to the trailhead. So up on this trail you also get some cool photo opportunities with the rock formations you can see here, and down there the trees and the main Solstice Canyon Trail that we passed before. You can see the main area where you turn off to go to the first ruined house.
After gaining a few hundred feet of elevation over the main Solstice Canyon Trail, the Rising Sun Trail begins to become flat and eventually go downhill with wide ocean views ahead.
So here on the Rising Sun Trail, we're going to continue straight for 0.4 miles to the TRW Loop Trail, which goes back to the parking area. You can also definitely start to get some wider ocean views along this part as you're going downhill. See pretty great view of the ocean in the distance there.
At this point, there are less than 0.3 miles remaining on the hike before you reach the TRW Loop Trail, which leads only about a quarter of a mile towards the main parking lot.
Here we're going to be taking the TRW Loop Trail across the road left. So here at this switchback, we're coming out of the TRW Loop Trail, go to the parking lot for another 0.2 miles. You can also go to the Solstice Canyon Trail for 0.5 miles.